Murder than they are the murders. We led a movement around Amadou Diallo. Young man shot at 41 times, unarmed, going in his own vessel, his own house in New York. We started marches and demanding justice. The press wanted to know why we were marching rather than why you shoot an unarmed man 41 times. Not just New York. Taisha Miller in California. Cases all over the United States. Oh, y'all are anti-police. No, we're anti-police brutality. Those that are anti-police are those that put on the uniform and disgrace it by coming to criminals themselves.
The Supreme Court, in some of their decisions, have stated that civil rights is not an appropriate venue for the courts. What's your response to that?
I disagree vigorously with that. In fact, I think about the fact that one of my role models growing up, and probably my primary role model, was Thurgood Marshall. And when I was in high school, the case of Brown versus the Board of Education came out. Traditionally, for African Americans and other dispossessed Americans, the courts have been the last hope. And very often, if you can't turn to the courts for hope, we're going to be in a lot of trouble. And I certainly hope that the justices will remember that as they look back at decisions like Brown versus the Board of Education and all those other great decisions that have interpreted the Constitution and restored the rights of those who had them taken away, and certainly affirmed the rights of those who never had them. I think that's really important.
One of your colleagues, I think his name is Brian Stevenson, who handles death row cases.
Yes.
He was recently quoted.
I'm curious, have you ever suggested a divorce? We have a situation in America where America has refused to even go to the hearings on race, have a people that they've subjected from the beginning. And we've read some of the rules like the social contract, which says if you don't do right by us, we're not obligated to your law. And some of us are seeking a divorce from America. Legitimate, split it in half like a woman and a man. And we're looking for a council of judges. Would you consider sitting on that panel?
I have no legal training. My own suggestion that I have made is that, first of all, there ought to be a consideration given to a setting up in this country of something akin to a Truth and Reconciliation Commission. Because I have, in my travels here, found that there is a pain in the pit of the tummies of many, if not all, African Americans, Native Americans, which needs to be articulated. And if you have a safe space, such as would be provided by a Truth and Reconciliation Commission, you might go a long way to beginning to deal with the legacy of slavery and your civil war in this country, which is a great country. I mean, it's a country with considerable, the people here are very, very generous people, and we've benefited from that generosity. But we think, that until you take very seriously what has happened in your history here, that you'll constantly, I think, keep being surprised at racial outbursts, which sometimes seem to be provoked by something quite insignificant in a way. Something that is, in a way, unthreatening. People should be able to have their say of all races and just unburden themselves. Because we found that just telling your story was an incredibly therapeutic thing for many people.
Forgive me for a follow-up. But the U.S. have said, we're not interested. They said that to the whole world, sir, by not going to the hearings on races. So that would be fine if you had a benevolent person. Even a benevolent rapist would come to the meeting. But America showed itself as a maligned rapist. They're not interested in coming to discuss race.
Well, yeah, I still would think that you don't want to give up yet. Don't give up yet, and try to be persuasive. Persuasive.
Follow up on the personal aspect. If, say, for example, with Archbishop Tutu saying truth and reconciliation is enough to atone for the murders and the deaths, would you, who have personally endured that victimization, would that seem to be enough for you to know who all conspired in it?
Honestly?
Forgive me for asking it.
Honestly? I think I'd have to say no to that. Let me give you an example. For 30-some years, I worked almost alone to see that Memphis Killer was brought to justice. Close friends, acquaintances, and others described me as being, their description of me was less than friendly, okay? That I would never let go. I was living in the past, even though I was moving on with my life in many, many different directions. I wanted to see Memphis Killer convicted. I knew he had been caught. There were two hung juries, as you probably know. And all of these years passed without anything else being done. Granted, I did make a nuisance of myself. I did not have money to pay an investigator. Every time I would go back to Mississippi, which was 2 or 3 times a year, I'd make my way to the Delta, other places, and ask people what's happened, where is this man? Fortunately, he continued to do things, and he kept himself in the news quite a bit. But it just so happened that in my being persistent with that, a young reporter from the Clarion Ledger was given documentation which at that time was not legal for release. But he called me and he said, I have something. Are you still interested in reopening this case? And I said, yes. He said, I can't tell you where the information has come from, but if you want it, it's yours. From that, we got the trial.
Sambo man. Soft-minded man, always fearing change, but never fearing to rearrange, to sabotage and to make things urbane, things that were once crystal clear and plain. Sambo man, you fear and change. You feel security in the status quo, even though you don't have a nickel to show. Oh, Sambo man, you fear and change. You want to rearrange nothing. You say the more things change, the more they stay the same. That's an evidence of Sambo man. Oh, now Sambo man, his greatest pain is a new idea. And that new idea he fears, my dears. You gotta watch him, because if you come up with a new idea, Sambo man, I want to go to committee and put it in the committee.